I once worked with this young fella, 16 years old, this guy, but he had the persona of like, what's his name, that French captain, Napoleon. He had so much swagger and confident, and he was a friendly bloke, and he had a really nice girlfriend. And he didn't put up with any crap from these overzealous older blokes, like in their 40s and 50s, who were trying to just talk down to him because he's a young fella and they're jealous of him. Now, he was a little bit hot-tempered, but that's pretty natural considering his upbringing. He kind of had to have thick skin. But his dad came home one day and his ex-wife was having sex with the motel worker, because the motel worker, she was living at a motel, and he was forcing her, well, pretty much kind of encouraged her to pay her bill for lodging through sex. And her ex-husband came home and noticed that his son, my friend, who I knew, was sitting outside kind of crying outside the motel. He's like, "What's going on? What's your mum?" And he's like, "Oh, she's inside with the motel owner." And so this guy who went in, he was a tough Australian bloke, and he seen that his ex-wife was paying for her motel with this guy. And so my friend's dad, he beat the shit out of this guy, motel worker, until he was almost dead. Now, that was because he was acting dishonorable, because he was taking advantage of a vulnerable woman and making her have sex with him because she couldn't afford the rent. And that's very dishonorable, right? But what happened is, I was thinking that this kid, he grew up without a dad. He was in prison because he beat this guy half to death. But then I thought about how this guy, I know, the 16-year-old, he's such a tough bloke, and he had so much conviction, and he was like, had so much morals. I think that because his dad did that one act, I'm not saying violence is good, but to be willing to go to jail for like 5-10 years just because someone was so dishonorable, that just shows such conviction. And I know violence is bad, but at the end of the day, that's what made society prosper, was the love of honor. And I guess it was the woman's fault as well for having sex, but obviously the guy should have known better. You don't have sex with a vulnerable woman and make her pay for things that way. Like, it's like if a child, a 5-year-old, offers you his dad's BMW keys, you don't say, "Oh, he gave it to me," Like, you don't take advantage of vulnerable people. And so think about that. This kid, this little baby boy, his dad went to prison because he beat this guy up who was having sex with his mum, right? But then he grew up to be such a cool kid when he was 16. Because, I think it was partially because he knew that his dad stood up for him. You know what I mean? So at the end of the day, I think as a father, yes, it's very good to be there, the cuddles with your kid and walk in the park and, making sure they eat well. But the most important thing is to stick up for honor.